people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from veteran boxing scribe Dake Jonovan, confirmed as of Friday morning. Sigaline Lefebvre versus Ellie Scotney's WBO and IBF unification bout will now also come with the Ring Magazine title at Super Bantamweight.
My thoughts.
I can't remember the last time there was a unified champion at this weight, at Super Bantamweight, let alone a Ring Magazine champion, though. The Ring Magazine title is supposed to be designated for what are the number one and number two fighters at the weight. And as much as I like Ellie Scotney, I'm not sure that's what this situation is.
Number one versus number two.
I don't think so. I'm not too hung up about it. I'm not up in arms. But when I think about the division, the fact that there are 4 champions there, and that neither Ellie Scotney or Sigaline Lefebvre is the longest reigning champion at the weight.
Can you really say that a fight between them is number one versus number two?
I wouldn't. Even if I feel like Ellie has a higher ceiling and more talent, more ability than the other champions at the weight, that doesn't give Ellie the strongest resume or the longest reign. The same applies to Sigaline Lefebvre, who might be a 2-time WBO Super Bantamweight champion, but she hardly has the deepest resume of all the champions at this weight. The champion who does is Mexico's own Yamileth Mercado, who has reigned as WBC Super Bantamweight champion since 2019, whereas everybody else, they got their belts last year.
Erica Cruz in November, Ellie Scotney back in June, and Sigaline Lefebvre before that in April.
Where Yami has already been champion and has been champion for 5 years and running. Thus, a Super Bantamweight contest that's supposed to be number one versus number two, not involving Yami, it just doesn't seem appropriate. It doesn't seem right.
What would be?
The number one and number two fighters at this weight, in my humble opinion, based on their body of work so far in tandem with their title reign, that would have to be between Yamileth Mercado, who holds the WBC, and Erica Cruz, who holds the WBA. They're champions, just like Ellie and Sigaline, but they have deeper resumes than Ellie and Sigaline. Much deeper.
And Yami has been a champion much longer than everybody else.
Having shared the ring with the likes of Mexican royalty in Barbie Juarez, the hard-punching Julissa Guzman, the one who knocked out Ramla Ali, Yami took care of her years ago. Capable fighters in both Kurukwashe Chiwandire and Fatuma Zarika 2 times, as well as Angelica Rascon. Yami has a much deeper resume than almost everybody else at this weight. The only fighter that comes close is Erica Cruz.
2-division champion Erica Cruz, who was a champion at 126, and she's a champion now at 122.
Recorded victories over then-champions Jelena Marjanovic at 126 and Mayerline Rivas at 122. Recorded victories over solid fighters in Melissa Esquivel and Melissa Odessa Parker.
At least at the moment, Erica Cruz has a better resume than Sigaline Lefebvre. She's got a better resume than Ellie Scotney. The saving grace is that very soon, Ellie will get the chance to strengthen her resume if she beats Sigaline, and I think she's going to.
As that would be the second world champion she would have beaten. The first was Shernika Johnson for the IBF, and this weekend, it could be Sigaline Lefebvre. In Ellie's own words, I think that these are the fights where you will see the best of me. I've got to show a side of me I haven't done previously. This is the fight that's going to bring it, and I'm excited for all of you to see. Where her adversary this weekend, Sigaline Lefebvre, says, the win is the win. That's the objective. If it comes by knockout, fantastic. So much the better. But the most important thing is to give everything I can and show people here what a French fighter can really do.
So what happens?
You will notice that Sigaline Lefebvre is a bit taller and a bit longer than Ellie Scotney, but I don't think she manages distance and knows her range, as well as Ellie Scotney, which is why Ellie shows the neater, tidier work and the more accurate punches, the cleaner punches, whereas Siegeline can be messy.
I don't think she's as capable on the inside.
I think for Siegeline, who's got those long levers, that's an area of vulnerability that Ellie, the shorter, stumpier fighter, can exploit, making herself a small target and working within close quarters to put punches together, short punches.
I think Ellie is going to work her mid-range to inside because I don't think Siegeline can keep Ellie out.
And the air of spontaneity that I have now associated with an Ellie Scotney fight, who gets better every time I see her and exceeds my expectations, going in there with seasoned fighters, more seasoned and more experienced than she is, and beating them, making it look easy while she does it.
Where most others struggle with the same fighters that Ellie Scotney beats easy.
She says she wants to show us something new, and I believe her because you have to remember, Ellie Scotney only has 8 professional bouts. In spite of having a solid resume, she's only got 8 fights. I don't think we have seen everything she can do yet.
She's going to show us more tomorrow. I think she's going to win. I've got Ellie Scotney on points.
Becoming the first unified champion this division has seen in a long while. In men's super middleweight news, kiss the rings. Jaime Munguia says Alvarez fight was earned with respect, something David Benavidez hasn't done.
They say you draw more flies with honey.
Whereas all Team Benavidez have been doing is talking shit.
Where has that gotten you?
After saying he was not interested in fighting a fellow Mexican, even though Benavidez is of Mexican descent, Alvarez will now move forward with an all-Mexico matchup for the first time since facing Julio Cesar Chavez in 2017.
He changed his mind. You never changed your mind before?
It might divide Mexico, but in the end, it will unite Mexico because they will be watching the fight Munguia told boxing scene. I have admiration and respect towards Canelo. We're going to have a great fight. This was not given. This was earned with respect and a lot of work. That's something other fighters have not done. After Jaime Munguia's last fight with John Ryder, what was a common opponent between him and Canelo Alvarez, after he stopped that guy and he knocked him out, you saw a swell of people saying now they would like to see Jaime in there with Canelo because Jaime stopped a guy that Canelo didn't stop.
Whereas with David, it's the opposite.
David couldn't stop a guy that Canelo Alvarez had already stopped.
Because he's fucking weak.
And he's a hype job. Jaime Munguia is a respectful person and a great fighter who's earned this fight again and again, Alvarez said during the kickoff press conference last month. Munguia is a disciplined fighter who hits hard. He's a power puncher, and I like a challenge. I want to face fighters who are hungry like I am. He's a fighter who can give the fans the show they deserve.
Unlike David Benavidez.
The 27-year-old Munguia certainly has taken a more mild-mannered position pursuing Alvarez than Benavidez has. Benavidez has proclaimed that he refuses to bend the knee to the scared Alvarez because he's earned his shot as the number 1 contender.
So what?
Oh, you're the number 1 contender. That changes everything. Look, guys, it's the number 1 contender.
What has that gotten you?
When I told you schmucks, when I told you bozos, that the WBC was not going to strip Canelo of a title to give it to David because David don't generate the money for them that Canelo does, do you remember when I said that?
Do you remember why?
No, because you're fucking stupid. The reason I said that is because you being a number 1 contender or the interim, that shit doesn't matter to the WBC.
You have no power.
No leverage. Benavidez's father and trainer, Jose Sr., joked that he'd approach Alvarez with flowers the next time negotiations begin. He also added a serious bargaining chip, admitting that they'd be open to a rehydration clause in order to quell Alvarez's concerns that David would be upward of 25 pounds heavier come fight night. Munguia certainly won't be bowing before the throne or kissing the ring of Alvarez once the opening bell sounds, but he's also not upsetting Alvarez with braggadocio and brash banter as he tries to take the crown away from boxing's king.
That's what Canelo is.
Canelo has always been a source of pride and motivation for me, said Munguia. I used to say when I was coming up in the sport, I want to be like him. And now we get a chance to face him and hopefully be where he is soon. The respect between us is mutual. We want to be a source of pride, not just for Mexicans in Mexico, but those all around the world who are expecting a great fight. Without a doubt, I'm going to push him. I give you my word that I am going to do my best for him to fight with me.
Because Jaime is a real Mexican, not a plastic one like David Benavidez.
Fuck him.
And fuck you for liking him.
Well, his dad said they're willing to let Canelo put a rehydration clause on him, but Canelo calls a Benavidez fight with a rehydration clause a lose-lose situation, looking for Bivol versus Better Beef winner instead as Team Benavidez grow more and more desperate.
Morons.
The tale of the tape for a tilt between Alvarez and Benavidez favors Benavidez, who is 6 years younger, 6 inches taller, possesses 4 inches of longer reach, and is the naturally bigger and faster fighter who appears more explosive.
Not explosive enough to knock out Caleb Plant.
Or even knock him down. I know by now you're tired of hearing me say that. You're tired of hearing me bring it up. But so long as members of the media misrepresent this fucking hype job,
I'm gonna bring you back down to reality.
to curb the 33-year-old Alvarez's concerns, it was recently shared that Benavidez is open to a rehydration clause in the contract, as that is how desperate they are for that payday. Alvarez does not see any benefit in bullying Benavidez with any weight stipulations.
He should.
Floyd Mayweather used weight stipulations on him. Gervonta Davis still uses weight stipulations on his opponents, ranging from an unheralded Mario Barrios to an undisciplined Ryan Garcia.
If they can do it, why can't he?
The people criticizing him don't have a problem with them and what weight stipulations they used, so why can't he play the same game?
Why not?
Yeah, a rehydration clause is a lose-lose situation because, after the fight, they're gonna say it was because of this, Alvarez told Boxing Scene in an interview on Thursday from his training camp home near Lake Tahoe, California. And then what? Then you're gonna talk about the clause. When I beat him, they're gonna say it was because of the clause. Nothing to do with the fight.
Well, Team Benavidez are the ones offering it.
Years ago, when Team Canelo were trying to corner a fight with Floyd, they offered to fight him with weight stipulations, and that's what Team Benavidez are doing now. So, if Canelo were to hold them to their word, the way that Floyd Mayweather held him to his years ago, I don't have a problem with that.
And stick an NDA on that fucker so he can't run to the media and cry about it.
A non-disclosure agreement that would prevent him from trying to cultivate sympathy by crying to the media about what his team offered to do.
You're the ones offering it. Don't cry about it if he holds you to your word.
There is always the possibility of having a rematch with Dimitri Bivol.
Who I think is a better fighter than David by and large.
Why not? That fight. I would love that fight, said Alvarez. I'm just focused on this fight right now with Munguia. I'm fight by fight, but if there's something interesting for me at 175 pounds, then why not?
What I think.
Canelo Alvarez stands a much better chance of beating a simple and basic fighter like David Benavidez than he has of beating Dimitri Bivol. Unfortunately for Canelo, between Dimitri Bivol's style, his stylistic advantages, and his physical advantages, it's just not a fight that I think Canelo Alvarez can win.
Though he brings more to the table than David Benavidez. David is just an interim champion. He's just a mandatory. Whereas Dimitri could soon become the light heavyweight division's undisputed champion.
That's saying a lot more than some mouthy prick and his father and his delusional fans.
What little fans he has, because we all know his 2 pay-per-views didn't sell shit.
With Benavidez being the most credible and lucrative option left at 168, observers are claiming Alvarez is avoiding Benavidez, especially after he floated the idea of a $200 million purse for the fight.
What observers?
If you think that David is the most lucrative option for Canelo, then why would you think that would be his first fight of what was a 3-fight deal?
Are you stupid?
You would have to be. Canelo Alvarez signed a 3-fight deal last year with Al Heyman and his PBC, and what were you expecting? That the most lucrative fight would be the first one.
Are you stupid?
I fought with any fighter and I win good money, and so I can do whatever I want at this time, said Alvarez. I deserve it because I did everything in my career and I deserve to be in this position. I'm gonna do whatever I want.
Fucking right.
Although Benavidez's next fight is at 175 pounds, he has intentions to move back down to 168. And I say let him, because if he does, you won't need to stick weight stipulations on him.
Nope.
Rehydration clauses?
That's a quick turnaround.
You have a fight at 175 in late June, to return to action at 168 in September, early September.
You're gonna get knocked out.
I already had Canelo Alvarez beating David Benavidez because he's a basic and simple fighter with no bells and whistles, no special effects. He's just big.
Big.
He's big for his weight.
Well, if you're so fucking confident, why hasn't Canelo fought him yet?
This is supposed to be the most lucrative fight he can have at 168, right?
Right.
Well, if this is the most lucrative fight he can have at 168, you thought Heyman was going to make that fight first? Is that what Heyman does? He makes fights in a timely fashion.
5 years for Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Another 5 years for Spence versus Crawford. 4 years to make a fight between two of his own fighters in David Benavidez and Caleb Plant.
But you thought that they were going to make this in a jiffy. You thought that when Canelo went into that 3-fight deal last year, this was going to be the first fight.
Clearly, you're fucking retarded.
No, you thought it was going to be the second fight, because they're going to make the most lucrative fight they can make the second fight of the deal. Let me fill you in on something. Al Heyman wants to use Canelo Alvarez's celebrity to sell as many pay-per-views with as many of his fighters as he can, because those fighters by themselves don't sell.
Yeah, but Jaime's not his fighter.
Yeah, but fighting Jaime wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to sell 2 Canelo versus Charlo fights with both Charlo brothers, because what he wanted to do was use Canelo's celebrity to sell as many pay-per-views as he could.
Technically, he's still trying to do that.
They had to amend the deal, make some alterations, because now you know you can't sell the fans another Charlo fight. Nobody wants to see either of the Charlo brothers, so you conjure up Jaime Munguia instead, but the goal is still the same. You want to use Canelo Alvarez to sell as many pay-per-views under your brand, under your banner, as much as possible. So they were never going to make the Benavidez fight the first fight, or even a second fight of the deal. In all likelihood, that would be the last fight of the deal.
But you fucking geniuses think you're telling me something.
I watch how easily Samson Lukowicz winds these guys up and puts a battery in their back whenever they do the rounds on social media. Either Samson Lukowicz or David Benavidez or David's father. All the while,
As soon as they say something.
nothing actually changed. David was never going to be the first fight of the deal. If that's the most lucrative fight you can make, that's not the fight you make first, it's the fight you make last. And nothing actually changed.
You're too stupid to see that.
He was never going to be first. He was never going to be second.
And Canelo's blasé attitude?
Canelo Alvarez makes millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, all without David Benavidez. He has made millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, all without David Benavidez. Do you think he's the one who's pressed,
Stressed.
who's eager, who's desperate? He's not gonna be. You can't tell losers how to have a winner's mentality. He's on the Forbes list right now, all without David.
Right?
He's going to have a blasé attitude. To Canelo, David is just another guy with his hand out,
And you're just another group of easily excitable morons.
all gravitating towards what is fresh and what is new, because David is bigger and David is younger,
So predictable.
and claim to be so frustrated with Canelo Alvarez having not fought David already, but you get upset when anyone suggests that David should move on. That if you're not going to fight Canelo and you don't think it's going to happen, then forget him.
Move on.
They get upset at me when I make that suggestion too, but you're the ones telling me the fight isn't going to happen. Well, if you don't think it's going to happen, then let it go.
They don't want to.
Because they are afraid of what will happen if they do. If David does go up there and starts on a light heavyweight campaign, he gets beat, he gets exposed, he moves in the background and is ultimately forgotten.
That's what happens.
As many times as you tell me the fight's not going to happen because Canelo is scared, that's more reason for David to let it go. Move on.